Honestly, I do not know if there is anything, worth saying anymore, because all the information is also on the internet. I just try to put it all together in videos so that people do not have to spend hours looking for it, and also I try to give new information that I thought about myself through all my knowledge. Essentially, yes, about historical accuracy, I was also talking about that, and hopefully I was talking about in order to sort of if it would be very hard finding original hats like that. It is always possible. The more one advances into time, I mean, in 2 years' time, I see way more exotic knowledge upon the internet than I used to 2 years ago. And I mean way more. It seems like 5 years have passed at least. I mean, not just for clothing, for everything. I'm into pagan religion and about pagan religious stuff. I was looking at yesterday about many things that people are getting into this. So there are things on eBay and Etsy now that I would not have expected to see, or not to that extent, even simply a year, or especially a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I was doing eBay as much as I do now, so it really is that there are more things coming and being available, more people are interested into it, which is absolutely magnificent. This would have been unimaginable 20 years ago. When I started doing this at 4 years of age, because back then we were very wealthy. Not rich, but very wealthy. Essentially, my mother-in-law had come to the conclusion everything had to be made, and this was what people were thinking about, and everything had to be made. But no, now more things are being available, whether originals, whether things that have been reproduced but quite a few years ago and being resold and all. People are getting more and more and more and more knowledge and more and more and more connected, whether that be in the field of computer science or very niche things like 1870s, Silk-Plush, British top hats. Everything is coming together in this giant matrix, and soon one shall awake into a giant cocoon like Keanu Reeves and realize that all of that was a nightmare and we were actually being eaten by machines. So this was obviously a satirical joke, but so I don't want to say that but even it was still very hard finding this, and even if I was up to getting £1,000 spent into it, the only thing that was a 58, and it was about £1,000 from Imperial top hats, was actually not even from the 19th century, but from the 1910s. So to very good people into it, but not experts into hats, they might have not been able to really see the differences with that one, but truly they were there. And differences that can really be, minute styling differences. And also, I don't like altering things, especially that are fragile and rare, because then what if something new I would change my mind, or what if something, and think, I want to dress 1910s because I have all this 1910s outfit I found for free and it fits me. And then I thought, well, I changed this 1910s hat to an 1870s shape, and I did it once because it was, I'm just taking that as a random example, otherwise it would damage the hat too much. But then you now desire to get back to it, then one is never satisfied with it. One is never satisfied. If one starts altering things unneedfully, it's just for the style, just for the accuracy point, and not because it really has to, otherwise you cannot wear it because of the size or because it got broken. That is different. Again, there should be a compromise. And to most people, you should follow what I do. You should, especially if you are getting into this, you should ideally keep it as much as it was initially made to be. But again, be careful. If you get something like this and it fits you all right, you might think, yes, but initially it was not there. The leather sweatband was more at the base. Yes, but stop. The more one alters something, especially so old and initially fragile anyhow, the more there are chances of it just going or you might, with something like that, be able to reconstitute it with lots of efforts. But as they would say, he said, if you had, especially just like these types of head, because they are fragile, they're completely crushed, I can eventually, hopefully, I'm not certain, I just have to try to restore, I have to try hat by hat to restore it to a more or less acceptable. It also will not be completely new like under a microscope, but it will be more or less completely acceptable and back to its shape. But then it would be for very light wear, because it would be completely fragilized. So You want to be able to wear them for more than just extreme light wear once a month, just going to a posh restaurant and just sitting on it on a table and being very careful. One desires these things to breathe, to live. So leave them, whether it be a pair of socks, a very sturdy frock coat made for hunting, or even a walking stick. You might say these things are very sturdy, yes, but try to have this in the back of your head. Leave things, even with things like computers and all, if you desire them to live as long as possible, leave them the full original manner as much as possible, because one will end up having to alter things as they are being worn, but do not alter them just for the style, just for the historical accuracy point, because you might still do it, but try to say no tolerance to that, because eventually there will still be an exception and you will still do it, but just be super strict with yourself in that. I'm an extremely severe person, and I'm extremely severe and strict and paranoid and harsh with myself. And that's why I can sort of, manage these things. Again, a hardcore, die-hard manner of being able to do it. But in a way it still works. Yeah, just do that. I will obviously tell you to do everything like I do because I'm a dictator. And I know people will just go around and say, well, blast him, and they will just do their thing. But I will not teach something that I do not believe is right. Especially with how I am. I'm a dictator, I love to dictate things, and I'm very conceited, and this is that, very much in-rule person, very much military-like in terms of rule. But at least it works. So, you may say anything you desire, it does work. So, and one of those rules is not altering originals, especially anything before 1950s. So, altering them, because it will still be altered through wear. It will have to be altered to be repaired. But do not just get it and say, oh, this is 1920s, I will do this to make it 1870s. Just give up on that. Just do not do that. Right? Because you end up doing that and finally it breaks the whole thing, or it kind of works and it will look fine in a film. But to wear every day, even in normal climate like in Europe, it will feel like, now it does not feel the same. Now it is stuck over here because to alter the coat I had to do this, and finally it got smaller here and too large there, and you will just give up and throw it at the back of one's wardrobe. So if it fits, if it works, just keep it like that. So, it's still recalling space, there's probably things to say still, yes, and the stitching. The stitching on the... See, it is a very high density, the stitching of the brim binding, which is odd because in some hats they were actually doing almost like half an inch, except there at the front, because this is where it is most likely to come and down, so except there at the front it will be almost half an inch gap between each stitch. So actually a low stitch density, because that way it actually looked more discreet than having all these little stitches. But that I did all the little stitches, probably because it is a more recent, more modern, postmodern hat, as in post-1920. But there the stitch somehow is conceived, because it is conceived to do it when the brim is flat, I think. And then to curl it with this very tight tolica, and on top of that having the Silk-Plush being fuzzy and on top and plushy, they're not fuzzy but flushy. Completely conceived. I would almost require at least a very strong magnifying glass if I was to find any stitches there, and I think it is just conceived really by being curled onto itself. Again, this was the brim, it was stitched like, let's say, by my thumb, and then the brim, the edge of the brim went like that. It went like that throughout. Just that it's tight, a little bit of the edge of the brim went like that, but it's curled as much as on the sides. It's more, goes gradually, they cut it more gradually. So it essentially hides the stitch density. But on all the hats, what they would usually do, at least on Anglo-Saxon and probably French, or usually European hats. But now all the stitching is gone because all the silk is frayed away through wear. But you can see, because this frayed away recently, and I took it off actually to conserve it. As I snipped it off, like I could do it here, but here it still holds on, so it's fine. And I'm no longer wearing it anyhow. But see the stitch density, the stitch holes, they are not half an inch, but they are still denser there. Clearly, see each hole is more spaced apart. Oh, this is very interesting. then here, if anything, it is more spaced apart. So again, different manners of doing it. The makers made things differently, also according to time periods, to time standards, fashions, ways. Here, nothing just remains